Give us your ghost stories, your odd stories of the paranormal. We'll study them. We'll pick them apart. We want to believe them, but will we? We are skeptical believers.
Hey, skeptical believers, or maybe you aren't. I don't know. We are. We are super skeptical and super believers. I think maybe a little bit on my end. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So you got your girl Cindy.
And I'm Heather. Hi. Hi.
I didn't warn you I was going to do that, so it's all good.
No, that's okay.
So today we are going to talk about the true story behind the horror movie, The Exorcism of Emily Rose. We're going to talk about the true girl that was loosely based off of. But first, I need to tell you guys that we have an editor, and he is freaking amazing, and he is also a podcaster and YouTuber, and you should totally go check his stuff out. So his show is called Milk Crates and Turntables, and he has a co-host, and they talk all about music, like all kinds of music throughout the years, mostly rock and roll, I think, but they might talk about other stuff too. And it's amazing. They're hilarious. They have great banter. Definitely check them out. And he's doing an amazing job of editing us to look like cool
We
people.
know what we're doing somehow.
Yeah. So anyway, check him out. Also, Heather has her own podcast too, because we're
podcasters. Did we ever mention that before? How we're podcasters? I don't know.
I don't know if we did. People probably really want to know that.
That we're podcasters? So, is that the thing? Okay.
We are.
We have podcasts.
Very much so. Yep. Hers is watching Netflix without you.
And also now the Politics Free podcast. If you're tired of all that jazz, come check that out.
Nice. So that's our shout out.
Yeah. Hey,
today.
Oh, sorry. I just please. I'll just.
So today we are talking about Emily Rose, but technically the real person's name is not Emily Rose. Her name was Annalise Mikkel, which I think is a beautiful name.
Mm-hmm.
And she was a real person. And we are going to discuss that whole thing. But we need to give you guys a solid warning.
Yeah.
First of all, spoiler alert, because I might mention the movie a few times. And if you don't want to know how that movie ends or what it's about or whatever, I'm going to probably talk about that at some point briefly. So there's that. But also, this is a controversial topic, I think, because it deals with deep religious beliefs, Catholicism, possession, exorcisms. Some people have some very strong opinions and viewpoints on that. And I'm an atheist who believes in ghosts. So I'm an anomaly. So I tend not to lean toward the religious stuff, but I am open-minded too. So I'm not just going to bash it, but you need to know.
Well, yeah. So I mean, our whole thing is skepticism. We come here intentionally to be skeptical, even though we both believe in our fair share of paranormal phenomena. Although I should note for the record, demon possession is not a paranormal phenomenon I personally believe in. That
me either
is something you should know. I do believe in ghosts. Aliens for sure. Bigfoot, I gotta see him to believe that one. I'm not super sold on Bigfoot. What else? The reptile people, not really there with that one. I don't know. There's some we believe in and some we don't. So,
yeah.
Anyway, are we ready to roll with this?
I think that we are, and you are amazing, and you have created this fancy slideshow thing for us to look at.
Go Google Slides. Oops, I went too
That's
far.
gonna-
No. Okay, there we go.
Oh no, don't look.
All right, so I think one of our things is we are going to assume that anybody coming to this video is probably pretty familiar with the story already. So I'm just going to do a really brief recap of events with Annalise Michel, who actually, Annalise was a nickname. Anna Elizabeth Michel was her formal name, I believe. She was born in 1952 in Germany. In 1968, she starts having seizures. Eventually, she's diagnosed with epilepsy and is put on anticonvulsant medication. Apparently, by the way, we should note there was no actual conclusive medical evidence of epilepsy from the tests she was given. At some point
Really?
yeah, well, that's now, I believe that is in this video that I've referenced here, which is on YouTube, from the Exploring series, Exploring History, The Exorcism of Annalise Michel, which I'm sure we can link in the description of this video if you want to go get a full detailed story about all this. So she begins to see visions of demonic faces. She's hearing voices. She's smelling stenches. She's having bouts of depression. Her parents decide at some point that she's possessed. They bring in a priest. Although it should be noted at first, consulting clergy members wanted them to seek medical help, and they weren't quite jumping on board with exorcism. So she continues on her anti-seizure medication, but her symptoms worsen. She then sees a psychiatrist and is prescribed an antipsychotic, which I think we're calling those mood enhancers or something now. Symptoms continue to worsen: severe headaches, slow reflexes, fatigue, paralysis on one side of her body. By 1974, she is suffering from chronic depression. Eventually, her parents take her off of medical help entirely, apparently, but also then in other sources, we find out they did continue her on her medication. So I'm not exactly sure.
Really?
It looks like she was on the medication for the duration of it. Maybe they stopped seeing the doctors. This is unclear to me. But
yeah, the stuff I read said that the parents stopped consulting her doctors and they took her off of all of her meds.
okay.
But I don't know. Sources are different.
Sources are different, and part of the problem is we can't go to the source because it's all in German, even if it is available for public access. So that makes it a little complicated for us, which is now making me. I'll bring that up later but making me wish I'd researched something else too. Anyway, so she goes on to have 67 total exorcisms, during which she is restrained. She stops eating. These went on, by the way, there were roughly 2 a week for 4 hours at a pop, right?
Up to
4 hours, yeah.
For over an 11-month time period. 67 over 11 months.
And during that time, she stops eating unless she's force-fed. She experiences various physical ailments, engages in frequent self-harm, and ultimately dies from malnutrition at the age of 23. The parents and priests involved are charged with and convicted of negligent homicide. The priests get 6 months probation. The parents have suffered enough already, according to the court. And we're not here to debate the rightness or wrongness of any of that. We're merely here to be skeptical about the demonic possession aspect of this particular case.
Yes.
So, just for reference, we can see. Okay, so let's try arrow keys. There we go. Move the mouse away. So here we can see what she looked like before all of this compared to shortly before she died, and it's startling and upsetting.
Episodes happened when she was 16.
That's right, yeah.
And then escalated. She passed away at 23. She was like 2 months shy of her 24th birthday.
That sucks. But,
yeah.
So, okay. I mean, I don't think there's any debate about the cause of her death. But the debate is, was she possessed by a demonic entity or entities? So, being skeptical as we like to, let's get into theory number 1, misdiagnosed or undiagnosed physical or mental disorder. So, first of all, in my opinion, the epilepsy diagnosis is suspect, since there apparently was no physical indication upon testing that she had epilepsy. And then I did a little digging into, and I found out there is such a thing as a non-epileptic seizure, which can be caused by a drug or anesthesia, by narcolepsy, by Tourette's syndrome, abnormal heart rhythms, meningitis, encephalitis, which are both brain inflammation diseases, and migraines.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and
I get migraines all the time.
well, but do you get seizures?
No, I have never had a seizure.
Yeah, so a lot of people will get a seizure like just once ever, and it'll never happen to them. That happened to me. I had one random seizure one time, and I was like, what is going on? And I was incredibly tired and very feverish and sick, and I'd been like up chucking all day long the nothing that was in my stomach. So I think that
froze.
all of that fatigue and stuff like that kind of contributed to it. But then it never happened again. But she did have more than one seizure, so it's not like she had one and then it never happened again. We also have non-physical reasons / mental reasons why somebody might have a seizure, including mental pain, emotional pain, physical or sexual abuse. So it looks like there's some studied psychological reasons also that somebody might have seizures and it not be epilepsy. So here I'm...
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, everything I read and everything I watched about her always emphasized how deeply religious her family was, and how her mother in particular really pushed her daughters to be in prayer and study and all of that in every extra moment that they had.
Yeah.
Like it was really ingrained in them that they were to devote all their extra time to religious studies and prayer. So,
to me, that could also explain why she was so fixated on religious symbolism throughout the possession,
right.
or the possession, if that's where you stand. But yeah, so the other thing I wondered was, we can see by their treatment of her during the exorcisms and that whole thing, that makes me really wonder, what was her upbringing like in terms of abuse? Not just mentally, but, and I don't know if there's any evidence of this at all, but was there physical abuse? Corporal punishment, this kind of thing, you know?
I didn't read specific examples of that, but what I did read in one article was that a doctor at one point diagnosed her with neurosis, and he said it stemmed from religious punishments as a child.
Interesting.
But neurosis is not a diagnosis that is used anymore.
No.
That term is not used any longer. But a doctor did diagnose her with that at one point. So, and I looked up the explanation of it, like the definition. It says it's a functional mental disorder involving chronic distress with no delusions or hallucinations.
Interesting.
But we know she was having those.
Yes.
At some point.
Yes, we do.
So, I don't know.
Well, let's leave that for a second and go on to theory number 2, because all of these theories kind of tie together in a way to me, and we'll get into that at the end. But theory number 2 here, physical and mental abuse, we kind of just plopped right into it. You know, we have the exorcisms where she got strapped down to the bed for up to 4 hours each, twice a week. Then we ponder what kind of physical treatment she got growing up, and how did that incredibly strict upbringing affect her mental health. So these are all somewhat answered, kind of not answered. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up under physical and mental abuse was, and this is where some people are going to get screamy at me, but let's take a look at her medications and what side effects came along with these medications. So we've got, Aolept is how I'm going to pronounce that, which is similar to chlorpromazine. And I just highlighted some of the many side effects, but like blank facial expression, right? Unusual, slowed, or uncontrollable movements of any part of the body. Difficulty falling asleep or staying asleep. I highlight that because that can make somebody go nuts. If you have a chronic lack of sleep condition, like you're consistently not getting enough sleep, and if she's taking something that's causing that effect in her, this could be more contributive to the problem than preventative of it. And doctors and people, they don't always get it right with the medications. Things can be wrongly prescribed. And I think this happens more frequently than we imagine that it does. She was also on, and that one, chlorpromazine, is an anticonvulsant. Dilantin or phenytoin, another anticonvulsant, has side effects of bruising easily, vomiting, not wanting to eat, anorexia, nausea, trouble swallowing or breathing. I thought all of those seemed, if you had all of those side effects going on, this could explain why you suddenly stopped eating or not wanting to eat anymore, which was definitely something she was going through. We have Tegretol, also known as carbamazepine. Nope, that's not it. Carbamazepine. It's right there. You can see it on the screen. The side effects are many. I just pulled a few and plopped them here. Trouble sleeping, again, right? Acting aggressive or violent or being angry. Other unusual behavior or mood changes. Loss of appetite. Nausea, vomiting, swelling of throat, lips, eyelids. New seizures and more frequent seizures. And that one really stood out to me because she is on 2 anticonvulsant medications, and then you give her a medication that might cause seizures or more frequent seizures. What are you kidding me? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And then all of this aggressive behavior, and we can get into it. This is well documented about mood altering medications. A lot of them have aggression and angry behavior that occur with them. And I think that is a lot more frequent than we tend to maybe think that it is with side effects. So I kind of landed like, so we have all this business with the medications and these various side effects. We have a cause of seizures that was never correctly determined because it wasn't epilepsy, according to the sources that I watched and read for this. And then we have on top of that the physical abuse, long-term, strict probably abuse, right? And then adding all of that together, and then the fact that they stopped then consulting medical, like to me, it's just a whole big combination of actual physical world things in combination with each other that ultimately and unfortunately ended in her death. So, I don't know. Oh, go ahead.
If her family was that very strictly religious and Catholic, and so they believed in the whole possession thing and exorcisms and all that stuff, what on the daily, what was her treatment like at home?
Right.
What were they saying to her? What were those little whispers in her ear from her mother? Like, all of that can contribute too, because her mental state was obviously not good at all.
Yeah.
And if she's got these whispers in her ear about, the sins of the youth of the time and all these things. I read one thing that said that at one point during the exorcisms and stuff, she said to one of the priests that she felt like she needed to die in order to atone for the sins of the youth at the time.
Interesting. I mean, the parents are definitely culpable 100%. But it's like if she goes to a psychiatrist for help or a doctor for help, don't you want to find out what their physical environment is like before you just jump on to prescribing things? Like if you're getting brutal treatment at home, it could be as easy as moving you somewhere where there's, less brutality. That could have saved her just that action alone, rather than all this other stuff that just kept piling up and then killed her.
Yeah.
You know, I guess I had this.
Did happen in the early 70s.
Yeah, and that's another
So-
thing too. I actually looked into that in terms of what tools were they using to try to determine if it was epilepsy or not, and apparently technology, digital EEG technology did exist at that time and was being used. So, you know, I'm sure there have been advances in that over the last 50 plus years, but they did have the correct stuff at least so if they're looking at that going, it's not, I don't see any sign of epilepsy, like maybe do some other tests for some other things. And I guess to be fair, the fact that physical or sexual abuse could cause seizures, like psychologically, might not have been known at that time. That might have been something that surfaced in research later. That I didn't really look into how we know that or when that was figured out.
That's true.
I guess this doesn't really matter that much, but it did say when you're taking certain anti-seizure drugs with carbamazepine, it'll decrease the level of that drug in your body and it won't work as well to treat your condition. And one of the drugs that I guess doesn't mesh is phenytoin, which she was on. So here I'm going, are they misprescribing things? Are they not digging deep enough? Prescribing her counteractive medications, you know, that's not going to help either. So, and I bring this up because I didn't really see anybody else talking about this particular aspect. And also, I know there's a lot of strong feelings about this. I personally feel like we jump toward medicating way sooner and faster than we probably should in many cases. Like, I sometimes feel like the solution is a lot simpler. And, you know, I guess we maybe just know more now than we did then.
I think that medications for sure have their place and they have their benefits.
Sure.
And doctors should be trained to weigh the benefits versus the risks and all that stuff. But I also kind of feel like, I know from myself and my family personally, I always start with, okay, what is causing this physically? Like what is the root cause? I don't want to just cover the symptoms. I want to find out what's doing it in the first place so I can address it. I've always kind of had that mentality. So yeah, for sure, all these weird drugs that they're given, and some of them seem to conflict with each other, is very troubling.
Yeah, it is. And it's super complicated too. And I don't even think doctors can keep up with the amount of literature and new drugs and stuff coming out. Like, I think that's also something that can make it very difficult. So, you know, I don't know. That's where I landed on this. Oh, I have a side note about the demonic voice. I don't know. This might be in poor taste. Some people that support demonic possession are going to talk about how deep her voice got. Like, they're going to compare it to the Exorcist movie and that deep, like, movie voice. So I just wanted to play this as an actual recording of her in one of the exorcisms here.
Wir müssen wieder auf der Kanzel predigen, dass mich gibt. Und das Volk nicht entführen. Oh. Ja!
So that's not really a deeper pitch than a woman can get her voice to, and I just wanted to demonstrate. See, it sounds just like it. So that's not really an indication of demonic possession to me.
Yeah. Agreed. And also, some people, I didn't read it for this case, but I have heard before some people are like...
Sorry, go on.
Some people are like, oh, but they knew things they shouldn't have known, or they were speaking a language they weren't familiar with or whatever. But in this case, she was taught from a young age to study religion emphatically.
Yes.
And to pray a lot. And so she did have lots of education in that area, and she was familiar with various demon names and things like that. And so I don't know that you can really say, oh, but she shouldn't have known those things. She actually could have and
Sure.
should have known them.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And I mean, unless you have anything else, that brings us to theory 3, actual demonic possession.
Okay.
No.
Heather, I adore you.
And there you have it. I'm at 10 out of 10 skeptics on this demonic possession.
Yes, I am also 10 out of 10 skeptics. I do not believe that she was actually possessed by a demon. First off, I need to clarify that I don't believe in demons.
Me neither. Yeah.
My whole atheist perspective, but I believe in energies, and they can be positive or negative. I do definitely believe in that because I have too much experience with that to not believe that. But I just don't buy into the idea of demons and angels. So there's that from me. But also, I don't know, these fathers, like, super skeptical of that whole thing. Like, the one father, Ernst Alt, was the main guy, I think. He convinced the bishop eventually to allow the exorcisms to take place. And he got this other father involved. The bishop assigned the two of them to do it. But the bishop told them they had to do the exorcisms in total secrecy. So that's a big red flag for me. That feels weird.
I mean...
And then the father said that she had 6 spirits in her. But there's a theory that she chose those entities or whatever because she was familiar with them. She knew what those spirits represented and stuff. So she kind of chose those, whether that be subconsciously or consciously. At this point, we're not sure because she was not right. She was out of her mind at that point.
I guess. Sorry, one other thing I just thought of. I know I brought up all the information on the side effects, and I know that's going to piss some people off. If she did come off of those, it's really going to depend. There can be really bad circumstances if you just yank somebody off of long-term medications as well. So there could be a withdrawal aspect going on in the end there if she's not on them. You know, and I didn't really look into what those symptoms would be for coming off of those particular medications. But I just wanted to throw that in there as well, which I had forgotten to mention earlier.
Yeah, that's a good point. Because if the parents did suddenly take her off of several different medications, good night. Like, who knows what that
exactly, and that could also, even depending on how much she was taking and the strength of it, that could be a death sentence in itself. So there's also that to think about, I suppose.
True. Yeah. So the spirits that she said were in her were Lucifer, Judas, Nero, Hitler, and Fleischmann, which is some kind of disgraced priest, and then Cain. So those are the spirits that she had.
All the bad guys from the Bible, essentially.
I don't know, all of those.
Yeah.
Yes. That's why I think that maybe that came from her own reasoning, because those are all people that she, at that age and at that level of religious education, would have kind of grasped.
Maybe she's just a severely brainwashed individual. You know, if she's getting that insane of a religious education with abuse on top of it, verbal or mental or physical, or maybe all three. I don't think there's any evidence of prior physical. I mean, there is a little bit about the thing you mentioned, I suppose, like severe punishments. But who knows what that is? Maybe she got locked in a dark basement by herself for elongated periods of time. You know, I don't know. Maybe she got flogged. I don't know. I don't know what those punishments were, but I know, yeah.
Listen, One thing I saw, which really, really disturbed me, was a picture which we'll include. And this picture is of her mother standing beside her and somebody on the other side of her. They each had her arm. I don't know who the other person was. They weren't shown, just their hand. But anyway, her mother and this other person are helping her to kneel and pray over and over again. But they had to help her because, girl, she broke both of her
That's right.
kneecaps and ripped like the tendons in her knees from praying too much. And they were still helping her. She continued to do that. I'm not Catholic. I don't have a background in that. So I didn't know what it meant. I had to look it up. But genuflect?
Genuflect, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what she was doing. So I guess that's when you go down on your knees and then you come back up. I guess you pray when you're on your knees or something. So she was doing that repeatedly with broken knees. And her mother was in the picture helping her to do it.
Those are all red flags. There's so many red flags. There's like 1,500 red flags everywhere from every person involved in this from beginning to end. She did not get the help she needed. She did not get the medical attention she needed. She did not get the loving home environment that she needed. None of that. So.
Right. Her autopsy said that she passed away of malnutrition and dehydration. But it also noted that she had fractured teeth, 2 black eyes, bruises on her hands, arms, and wrists, and numerous wounds on her body.
Jesus.
And during the trial, the fathers told the judge and jury that she had stigmata. So...
It's not really what stigmata looks like, is it, though? Is it... that is so hard to believe. I guess, is stigmata just any injury? So. It's just any injury that comes from the ether?
Definition of stigmata was, let me see if I wrote it down or if I just read it. Yes. Stigmata is wounds, scars, or pain in locations corresponding with the crucifixion wounds of Jesus.
Okay.
So
usually the hands and feet and maybe the crown of the head would be indicated there. But
or the cut in the ribs, right?
Oh, that's true too, yeah.
Stabbed in the ribs.
Yeah.
So I'm not inclined to believe that this girl really did have stigmata.
No, it just sounds like she was bludgeoned to death, honestly.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. So we're on this story, we're 10 out of 10 skeptics.
Yep.
We don't believe she was really possessed by demons, and 67 exorcisms. That's excessive.
It is nuts.
So, poor thing. I feel terrible about the whole thing. So, that's our story from the true story of Emily Rose. And hopefully we have not offended anyone or...
Oh, no, that's impossible. We've definitely offended people. It's happened.
Yeah.
You can't not in this day and age.
Yeah, it's a thing. But we're just trying to be skeptical believers.
We are.
Yeah. So thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next time. If there's a story that you want us to cover, leave it in the comments, and we'll check those out and, pick some.
Yeah, also,
that would be really fun.
Comment on what your theories are. And like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.
Indeed, do those things. Those things are important to us. We very much appreciate them. So thanks for hanging.
Bye.
See you next time.